Hey YouTube, welcome back to the Budget Sportsman. As you may be able to tell, I am stuffed up and sick. And I really thought about not hunting tonight, but I wasn't able to hunt last night. And I really wanted to try this spot out in the evening before the wind switches. Now I'm up in this big old oak tree. And this is my first time ever hunting from a hang-on tree stand. Borrowed a hang-on stand from my one brother-in-law, borrowed some steps from my other brother-in-law, and got up here in this tree. I'm pretty happy with the cover that I have from up here. Now you may be able to see that there's an access road, the main access road to this private piece of property back here. But there's no problem for me to hunt over this access road. It's not a public road. Now every evening for the last several weeks we've been seeing does come right out into the edge of this field. But because I didn't have a hang-on stand, I couldn't hunt it because there's no trees that will work with a climber. So I finally got this set up. So let's sit still and see what happens. Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Thursday, October 25th, and I'm hunting in the same stand that I just set a few days ago. Now, we're getting into the time of year we should start seeing some running activity. Unfortunately, my hunts have been kind of sporadic and a little bit helter-skelter. I have not seen it yet. But I'm also right now still trying to fill my doe tag before the rut hits really heavy. So let's sit tight and see if any deer come out into the corner of this field. guys, I'm kind of shaking. I just shot a doe. One small one came in and it gave me a good opportunity, but I just wasn't sure I wanted to take it. And then 3 more came in. 2 of them were decent sized does, but unfortunately they walked straight toward me and right underneath me. And I have got a cold, and so I coughed right when the last one was getting to the point where I couldn't get a shot. But the angle was bad. Well, she heard me cough, and she jumped back and stood broadside at about 20 or 22 yards maybe. And waited. She was looking up at me, but I waited till I put her head down, drew back, and I was able to get a shot. So hopefully she went down. I saw her run up into the field. Kind of lost sight of her, so hopefully she went down. Give it a little bit of time, go check my arrow. Well, guys, I'm back at the house. I reviewed the footage. Unfortunately, I definitely hit lower than I intended, but I think it may have still been okay. Now, when I got down and checked the arrow, there was definitely blood, but maybe not as much as I liked. The one thing that's really keeping my hopes up right now is that about 10, maybe 15 minutes after I shot, I'm pretty sure I heard a crash in the woods in the direction that she would have gone. So I'm pretty hopeful that we're going to go up there and find her. It's been a little while. I've had supper. I'm about to go meet my dad, and we're going to go see if we can find her. Well, everyone, I came out and found some blood by the arrow. But in the grassy field, the blood trail is a little hard to follow, so I decided to just come up here and check the area where I heard the crash, and within a few minutes I found my doe. And so I'm super thankful for the opportunity to come and hunt and for some meat in the freezer this year, and thank the Lord for providing this deer. Well, I hope you enjoyed that hunt. I wanted to take a few minutes here at the end of the video to talk about some lessons learned. Even though it was a successful hunt and the deer was harvested, I still feel like there's some lessons that I learned and some things that I hope that will help you if you're a beginning hunter or even if you're experienced. The first thing is that in this hunt, the hang-on tree stand made all the difference in the world. I've been looking at that spot for quite some time. I've known that deer come out there basically all summer, all through the fall, but I just haven't been able to hunt that spot because there was no good place to put a climbing tree stand, and I don't have a good blind that I could use for archery. So getting that hang-on tree stand really made all the difference. So if you're looking for your first stand, or if you only have a climber stand, I would say it's something you should consider. Now, I've hunted out of climbers all my life. I love them. I think they're great. I'm not saying they're bad, but there are times when they just don't work for certain situations. So I would encourage you to think about that if you're looking for your first stand. The second thing I wanted to point out is no matter what happens, unless you see the deer go down and you know that deer is down, just sit tight in your tree stand. I honestly, when I made this shot, I felt like maybe it wasn't the greatest shot in the world. And to be honest, I kind of was discouraged. I was just going to get down and go back to the house, check the video footage. And I'm very thankful that I stayed long enough to hear that deer crash, because that made a huge difference in how easy it was to find that deer. I think we would have found her anyways, but it just made it so that I walked right into the woods and I went right to where she was, instead of having to try to pick a blood trail out through the field of grass. So sit still, listen. You might hear that deer crash. You might hear some piece of information that told you where that deer went if you have trouble tracking later on. So sit still, listen, observe, watch the deer as much as you can, as long as you can, because all that information is going to help you. The last thing I want to talk to you about is shot placement. I think this is super important because I learned some lessons. Even though I was successful, even though I harvested the deer, I learned some big things about watching the video back. Now, this shot was at 22 yards, and unfortunately this doe was already on high alert. She had heard me let down my bow, she jumped, she knew something was up, and even though I tried to draw when she started turning her head the other way, she still caught that motion, popped up, and she knew something was not right. So as soon as she heard the sound of the shot, she started dropping. And let's take a look right here at that video and watch how the arrow is almost to that deer before she starts reacting, and then look how far she actually drops by the time that arrow hits her. Now, if I'm being honest, I hit lower than I anticipated. Now, I did anticipate the deer dropping, and I was aiming toward the bottoms of her body, but certainly not as low as what I hit. Now, I'm going to put a dot here on the screen where I think I was aiming, and watch what would have happened and where I would have actually hit the deer if that's where my arrow would have gone. And as you watch this footage, you'll realize I would have hit her almost at her backbone, or probably right under her backbone, and very likely would not have hit that deer. Now I'm going to put a dot where the arrow actually hit. And if you'll notice, before she starts ducking, the dot is actually under her belly. Now let me reinforce here, that's not where I thought I was aiming. I intended to be aiming a little bit higher. But as she ducked, she actually ducked right into the arrow. And what lessons can we learn here? Well, first of all, we need to be very careful about taking shots, any shots, at deer that are on high alert. We're not talking about a 30 or 40 yard shot here. We're talking about a shot at 22 yards, and that deer still moved that much and impacted arrow placement that much. So when all possible, let's try to take shots at deer that are not on high alert, that are calm, and they're going to be much slower to react and drop at the sound of that string. I hope this information was helpful to you. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you'll give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And until next time, remember to get off YouTube and get outdoors into God's great creation.